So with the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup qualifier just around the corner now, a little over 3 weeks away, and the schedule and the fixtures and the groups announced this week, I thought it was a good time to maybe have a bit of a preview of the tournament and a look ahead to what, in my opinion, is maybe the most tantalising tournament on the calendar, full stop. The best of the associate nations taking on the lowest ranked test teams from the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup Super League. Come together, 10 teams battling it out for a massive prize, 2 spots at the Cricket World Cup in October, November in India. Prizes don't get much bigger than that in the world of cricket. So we're going to chat about a few things. Let's firstly talk about the format, how the competition works, the 34 games spread between the 10 teams. And then we're also going to talk about the groups, the schedule, where those games are being played, which ground they're at, a little bit about the prize, the top 2 going to the Cricket World Cup, and then also maybe some predictions. I'm almost certain to get those wrong. So the structure and the format, let's explain that. 34 matches between the 18th of June and the 9th of July. Between those 10 teams, they come pretty thick and pretty fast, and it gets going in just a little bit over 3 weeks. 6 associate teams. They are the top 3 from the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup League 2, alongside the Netherlands, who finished bottom of the Super League. The 4 lowest ranked test nations from that Super League, that's the host Zimbabwe, joined by Ireland, the West Indies and Sri Lanka. That's the other team, nearly forgot them. And then those top 3 associates, they came from the Cricket World Cup League 2. So that was the champions of that, Scotland, joined by Oman, who finished second, and Nepal, who qualified in such incredible circumstances there in Kathmandu with that streak of 11 wins from 12 games. And then the 2 teams from the playoff, USA and UAE, getting through that. USA, the champions of that. They've been split into 2 groups. One of those groups will be based in Harare, and the other will be based in Bulawayo. So the games in Harare will take place at the Harare Sports Club, one of my favourite venues anywhere in the world. We're going to see, particularly for the Zimbabwe games, massive crowds coming along for those matches. The HSC, it's the home of Zimbabwean cricket. That will be joined by the Takashinge Cricket Club. It's a venue I've been to before for the Women's Cricket World Cup qualifier that was abridged by the Omicron aspect of the pandemic. What was that, back in 2021? Beautiful ground, very much a ground that the local community gets behind. Hamilton Masakadza has a huge affinity with that ground. They're the games in Harare. Then Group B will be based down in Bulawayo at, firstly, the Queen's venue, which is a spectacular ground, beautiful, full of history, full of heritage, nice grass banks on one side, and then a ground I really like, the Bulawayo Athletic Club. Not very big in terms of boundary size, but tend to be pretty competitive wickets. Remember, we'll technically be in the African winter, so it'll be interesting to see what the wickets do. Let's talk about the 2 groups, starting with Group A. The hosts, obviously, in that's Zimbabwe. They are joined by the West Indies, and then 3 associate teams, Nepal, the Netherlands, and the United States of America. Let me explain the format before we get into the groups, maybe. That's the best way to go about it. All of the sides will play everybody in their group once, and the top 3 from that will stay in contention, and then it advances to a Super 6. The key thing about the Super 6 structure and the way it works, you carry your points through, but only against the sides that have qualified. So alongside the 3 teams that have gone through, if you finish in first, winning all your games, you're going to carry through 4 points and have a massive chance of qualifying for the Cricket World Cup. Then when we get to the Super 6 phase, what will happen is you will play against the top 3 qualifiers from the other group, carrying through your 2 results that you bring through alongside the 3 from the other group. That gives you 5 matches, which creates the Super 6 table, where you'll have played everyone in that Super 6. And it's then as simple as the top 2 in that structure will end up qualifying for the Cricket World Cup. If we look back to 2018, the history of that event, it's the exact same structure, in fact the same host as well. For me, if you look at the structure, if you go through in 3rd place with 0 points, it looks like it's close to impossible to finish in the top 2. But Afghanistan did that in 2018, primarily because of the tie between Scotland and Zimbabwe and Bulawayo, and then also because of the fact that the UAE beat Zimbabwe and robbed them of the 2nd automatic qualification spot. One thing is for certain about this competition: the associates are going to be the best they've ever been. They've never been better prepared. They've all played 36 ODIs apiece in preparation for this tournament. They've never played as much ODI cricket, and a lot of that was kind of backloaded because of the pandemic. For example, Nepal playing 12 matches inside just 2 months there between Dubai and Kathmandu. So the reality is you've got to carry points through. You really need to at least finish second in your group to have a really strong chance of qualifying for the World Cup. Then when you play your crossover games, you've got to go on and beat them. So Group A, I'll run through it again. Zimbabwe, the West Indies. They are then joined by the 3 associates. That's Nepal, the Netherlands, and the United States. Now the Nepal side, they are robbed of all of their county players. None of them are available. So Fred Klaassen, Shane Snyder, Roelof van der Merwe, Paul van Meekeren, Tim van der Hoekten, Colin Ackerman, Brandon Glover, not available. That's going to weaken the Netherlands. But as we saw during the Super League, they'll still be competitive. They've got a lot of experience through that Super League against Test nations, and I'd expect them to still be in the mix. But Nepal's streak of hot form at the moment, that will put them in contention, not just for a top 3 spot, but maybe beating Zimbabwe or the West Indies. That would be a first ever victory against a Test nation. Predictions for that group, you'd have to fancy Zimbabwe on home soil. West Indies could be vulnerable, but again, they did get through that in 2018. Always remember Jason Holder, the captain at that point, talking about how this was a different type of cricket, how competitive it was, how incredibly dramatic it was, and how much pressure there was in every single game. They got through, but only just in 2018. They'll have to play very well to get through again. Again, whoever tops that group will put themselves in pole position because they'll likely carry through 4 points. USA, do not underestimate them, particularly if Ali Khan is at his best. We saw what he did in the Cricket World Cup qualifier playoff, but they've got a really good batting lineup as well, the likes of Mayank Patel, Aaron Jones. We've actually seen their squad announced. In total now, we've seen 6 of the 10 squads announced, and Nepal have actually announced an extended squad, so you could almost say 7 are nearly there. Oman too have a slightly extended squad, but really good depth in that team that America are bringing down. Don't rule them out. I don't think there's any easy games at all in Group A. You could argue, maybe, just maybe, Group B is the easier of the 2 groups. That is made up of the 2 Test nations, Sri Lanka the top ranked, then they're joined by Ireland, and it's Oman, Scotland and the United Arab Emirates that round out that group. UAE, in theory, are the 10th ranked of these 10 teams. But the last 5 times that the UAE have played Ireland in T20 cricket, they've beaten them. So that will show how competitive that group will be. Ireland showed in the Super League with a fantastic campaign that realistically, you could make a strong argument that they probably should have qualified from that Super League. They lost so many games by the barest of margins in the final over by a couple of runs. We saw that again in Chelmsford, failing to get over the line twice from winning positions against Bangladesh. Ireland should be very good. They've got a very settled team. I think they've got a good, strong squad announced, and I think it's their best of their 3 formats between ODIs, Tests and T20s. Sri Lanka, probably the favourites for the whole competition, you'd have to think. First time, if you look at them since, I think, 1983 that they've had to qualify for the tournament. All the other times they've got through, that was back when the ICC trophy was the sort of preceder to this competition. But West Indies and Sri Lanka, both former champions, they have to get through to that 10-team World Cup. Rounding out that group, if we look at Oman, a very good side, very well led by Zishan Maksud, one of the best captains on the associate circuit. Don't underestimate them. They are aging. They might be a little bit weaker in the field and they're running between wickets, but their skill set, their bowling in particular, and their batting particularly, if they can get Karur Ali back for that tournament, and Aki Ilyas, I think he's going to be fit, so that will make a big difference. Again, no easy games there, but Scotland too, they're also weak, and they're missing the likes of Brad Wheel and Josh Davey and Michael Jones from the county setup. Again, big blows for this tournament being played during the English domestic summer, where so many of the Scottish and the Dutch cricketers earn their living, and understandably, they couldn't get away from that. Who's going to go through that group? Well, you'd have to fancy really Ireland and Sri Lanka to be in the top 3, but who will join them? Not too sure. Scotland still have a score to settle from 2018. They'll fancy their chances against Ireland, their Celtic rivals in particular. They've got a good record against them, but don't rule out the UAE. I think they're a very good side, fantastically balanced bowling attack and a good batting attack too. So on to the Super 6 then. Those games will be played mainly at the main grounds, in fact all at the main grounds, the Harare Sports Club and the Queen's Sports Ground in Bulawayo. Great news too from the ICC, DRS is going to be in place for those games, and we're going to have a massive broadcast operation. This is going to be the biggest qualification tournament, maybe in some ways the biggest qualifier, the biggest event outside of a Cricket World Cup that the associates have ever played in. In 2018 it was outstanding, the broadcast has been massively expanded from then, and we're going to see many more games, not just broadcast, but also I think even the reserve games will be live streamed. We'll hear more from the ICC on that. It all comes down to those 3 weeks of matches, 34 games, and for the associates, I think there's a massive chance to make history if one of them managed to qualify and finish in the top 2 and upset those 4 Test nations. For me, it would be the biggest achievement in associate cricket history. It's only a 10-team World Cup. There's been lots spoken about that. That's going to be in India. But imagine that prize. Think of that. To go on, if you're let's say a Nepal or a Netherlands or a Scotland or a UAE, to go to India to play it, probably 7 or 8 different venues, some of the biggest stadiums in the world, in front of the biggest crowds that they'll ever have played in front of. I just think it's such an amazing opportunity. You get 9 guaranteed games then against the other test nations. And I think if there's a qualifier that it's going to happen from, it's going to be this one, because the associates are so well prepared. Yes, Sri Lanka, massive favourites. They probably have by far the most skillful side there. I think the West Indies could be vulnerable, could well be proven wrong there. But we saw in 2018 they were far from invincible, particularly against the associates. So what we're going to see, and if you look back actually at the T20 World Cup most recently in Hobart there, both Ireland and Scotland beating the West Indies. So for me, I think we're now looking at an event where one associate may have a real chance. Which associate will that be? Hard to say. UAE, very good side. Nepal, the streak that they are on under their new head coach Monty Desai and their inspirational young leader Rohit Paudel. They've won 11 of their last 12 ODIs in Cricket World Cup League 2. And then you look at the Asia Cup qualifier run where they went on, I think they were unbeaten. It was just the one washout, wasn't it? They're going to go on to that Asia Cup as well and play that in September. That's already one of the biggest things in Nepali cricket history. If they were to qualify for a World Cup, well, that country, it would just be unbelievable. It would be an incredible story and one that could well happen. What about the other associates? Oman, it might be a bridge too far. They'll be targeting a top 3 spot in the group to get through the Super Sixes, as will USA. But as we've seen from these qualification events, there are no easy games. I think this time that is more appropriate to say than ever. The Dutch as well, they're not going to be underestimated. If I had to pick my 2 qualifiers, I do think Sri Lanka will qualify. Zimbabwe on home soil will be a big asset, particularly with Sikandar Raza back from a strong IPL showing. Who's it going to be for the second spot? I can't put my finger on it. I think Sri Lanka will qualify. I'd fancy them to get there. Ireland, maybe Zimbabwe on home soil. What about Scotland or Nepal from the associates? I'm going to go out on a limb. I think an associate's going to qualify for the World Cup, for a 10-team World Cup for the first time. Which one will it be? We'll have to wait out and see. I'll hopefully be there. I'm bringing you an awful lot of the coverage. Really looking forward to the event wherever I am in the world. It is going to be nothing short of sensational. Can't wait for it. I think it's less than 4 weeks away, about 24, 25 days away now. And every single ball is going to be an event. Every single match is going to be an occasion. And looking forward to seeing the Zimbabwean public getting right behind it. And also, what we might do, maybe 10 days out from the tournament, might do a little preview of each and every team here on my YouTube channel and run through it. So always nice to hear from you. Thanks for all the support. And that was the Cricket World Cup qualifier preview. All gets going on June 18th. We'll see you there for it. Cheers.